So if you've ever tried to export your data from ActiveCampaign so that you can use a different CRM, either switching software or just putting your information into a different system as well as ActiveCampaign, what you'll notice when you export is that you get all of the main details, all of these sort of fields of data, tags, but what you don't get is the comments or notes that are at the bottom here. We actually write quite a lot of notes on our contacts as part of the marketing and sales process. So getting this information out, this is just a test person, but if we've got real clients in here, it was a major drawback for us to not be able to take comments with us. And not being able to export them from ActiveCampaign is a common problem when I've Googled around on the internet. It's something people want to solve. So I want to show you how I was able to achieve this using a couple of different steps, a plugin for Chrome and some Python scripts. So the first thing that I did was I used a Chrome plugin called Save Page WE Options. This is a free plugin. It has a few different sort of options and that sort of stuff. But the reason that I used this one is because I tried some other download page sort of scraper plugins. There's quite a few of them, but quite a lot of them didn't seem to get the actual data of the page as it was loaded. One of the challenges is that ActiveCampaign loads a lot of that data, including the comments or notes, using JavaScript. So the actual HTML, if you just save it raw, doesn't have that data in it until it's sort of finished loading, and then even saving it sometimes with different different extensions didn't seem to quite get it right. But this one works. It's got a bit of a funny interface, but what I found was you need to be able to generate a text file that has a list of URLs. And so the first thing I did was I wrote a short Python script to generate that text file with the URL. So I looked at the highest numbered So I looked at the most recent contact that I had in ActiveCampaign to find the ID number. It's just at the end of the URL. And I know that that's the maximum number of people that I've got in my list. So the first script that I wrote is a fairly simple Python script that just generates a text file. And that text file ends up looking like this. It's literally just a file full of all the numbers up to your highest contact. Then we come back to Save Page WE Options and we choose that file and load it, and it tells you how many URLs are listed. Then what we have to do is actually just click on the button for Save Page WE, and you'll see that it's opening tabs. You can't see that on the recording here, hang on. It's opening tabs here, and it waits a few seconds according to the options that you've got in here, and then it will automatically save it. There we go. You can see it saved it down here. And so that's Save Page WE Options. And what you end up at the end of that, you end up with a folder that is full of all the file names just saved out as HTML files. I'll stop that in the background so I don't keep downloading them. what I actually found was that it has trouble in maybe 5% of pages, between 2 and 5% of pages, for some reason don't seem to download correctly. So the script that I wrote to then scrape through the data actually checks for errors and regenerates an error file, a list of all the files that have errors, to be able to run this again. So what I've done the second time is gone choose file, So what I've done the second time is chosen my errors file, and it's showing me the URLs that are listed. I actually had to do this twice. So that's why it says 8 URLs listed, because this was the second round of errors that I found. And after those last 8, then there were no more errors, and I had all the files that I needed. So now onto the Python script. So this is the main Python script that I've been running. It's called scraper comments, and I'll run through it quite quickly, but I'll also give you the access to this code if you ever want to use it for anything yourself. It's doing a bunch of imports. I'm just running a fairly plain Python on Mac. I'm not a hugely proficient programmer, but I know enough to be able to do this sort of stuff. So the first thing I did was I cleaned up the dates. If you remember the way that it looks in If you remember the way that the date looks in ActiveCampaign, it will say things like 1 year ago or 2 months ago rather than the actual date. And as I'm importing, I wanted to put a date on that, because obviously if I put this in as a text string, it won't change, So I want to put the actual date. So we've got this little thing that cleans the date. It passes an elapsed time. That's just a function there that does that. Then we've got the thing that actually goes through it. So we're going through, again, all the way from the first one in my list was actually number 3. I'm not sure where 1 and 2 went, but the first active record was number 3, all the way from there to my top numbered record. It goes through, it opens each of them in order, and then it does a scrape. And it's using Beautiful Soup, which is a Python library, to be able to go through and find that stuff fairly easily. I'm breaking it down to also find the name of the person who left the comment and the date, as I mentioned. So then what we're doing is we're creating a column in a CSV file that has just the comment with the appended thing that says left by the person's name, on, and the date that's been updated. And then we loop through all of those, create a row for each one, and then open a CSV and write into it. And as I mentioned earlier, I also at the bottom here write any errors. So if it doesn't find an email address in any of them, then it will load up an error. So if the script doesn't find an email address in any of the HTML files that it's working through, so this is the Python script. It's fairly basic. I'm not a hugely proficient programmer or scripter, but I've managed to make it through this okay. And I'll just read you through it quickly, but I'll also give you access to this whole thing. You can go ahead and use it, improve it, all that kind of stuff. The first thing that I've got here is a fairly simple function to get the date out. So this only runs when it's called, but basically if you remember the way that ActiveCampaign has the pages, the notes written, the comments, it uses a time that says something like 1 month ago or 3 days ago, rather than saying the actual date. So I'm transforming that into a more normal sort of date format. It's always going to be an approximation from that point, because if something is over a year ago, ActiveCampaign just says 1 year ago. It doesn't give an exact date. It's a little bit frustrating if you need exact dates, but it's the best that we've got. So this is turning it into a date object so that it actually says the date. So it will say at the bottom of the comment, it'll say that the actual comment, and then it'll say by the person's name and then the date written as a date. And then this is the actual loop that goes through all the HTML files and scrapes them. So you can see that it's just looping through. For some reason, my first file was number 3, and then I've gone up to the highest one that I've got. It goes through, it opens them each in order from the folder that they're saved in. If there's an error at any point, It adds it to an error file, as I mentioned earlier, so that we can go back and try and re-download those, and then just simply run this whole thing again, and it will replace the whole thing. This is using a library called Beautiful Soup to be able to work through the HTML. It's really, really handy. And it basically just searches for the email address in each page and then scrapes out all the comments one by one. And we're sort of putting them into separate columns in a row, just saving them there, and then writing it to a CSV file. So that's what this last little bit here does. It just writes all of the rows into a CSV file, and then all of the errors into an error text file. Now the errors are basically just a list of files. You just open that up again in the save page WE options, run it again, run this whole script again, and it will just, as soon as you get down to 0 errors, you know that you've got a good CSV file. And then what you end up with after all this has run is a CSV file, and this is what it looks like. So all I'm doing is saving the email address. I figure we've got every other piece of data from a normal export anyway, and we can just use this email address as the field to import these. And then we've got a column for each comment. Now, it's always going to go up to the maximum number of comments on any one listing, any one contact, but most of them, as you can see on mine, only have a handful of comments. Then, after all of that, we've got our comments CSV file. We come into, in my case, I'm using HighLevel. I'm happy to put a link to that in the comments as well. It's been a really good system for us so far, and has a lot of features that are not just for marketing, but a whole lot of other things as well. But whatever it is that you're importing into, it's probably going to be similar if you can import notes. So when I come to import this file, I use the email address. I map it to the email field that I've already got in my contact database. So obviously that's the one that's going to do the sort of unique check. And then I start with the last comment row. So I start with number 20 if I've only got 20 rows of comments, and I map it to the notes field. Where is it? There it is. And then I'm going to go next. I'm not going to do this because I've already done it. In HighLevel, you've got to click that on. Go next, and it will save that one there. Now that's going to save everything that is in a comment in the 20th row of comments. It's going to save everything in there. And then the next time round, I'm going to not choose that one. I'm going to choose comment 19. Then I'm going to import again with comment 18, 17, 16. So I do have to do this import 20 times to make this system work. But the reason I'm doing them in reverse order is because then when I go and look at the contact, I see the oldest comment, the one that is in the highest column. I see that one last in the list, and them up to the newest at the top of the list. So it looks like the correct order. It looks like the natural order that they should be in. And once that's been done, all of those notes and comments have been imported, and everything's working really, really well. I absolutely love HighLevel as a system. I love that it's got the flexibility to allow me to do that. And I'm really grateful that I was able to figure out a way to make this work so that we could actually export everything from ActiveCampaign that we needed and put it into HighLevel. One thing I will mention is that for us, we had some 13,000 records. Actually getting through the download using this save page WE, it took around 30 hours to download all of those pages. And then plus when we did the errors, that took a couple of hours again. So it is quite a lengthy thing, but obviously you're not doing anything while that happens. You're just sitting there working away at your own other stuff and allowing it to download, or you can set it to go overnight if you can stop your computer from sleeping. Anyway, that's it for this video. I hope this has been useful to you. It really has been a bit of a process figuring out how all this works, so I'm happy to be able to share it with you guys, and I hope that it's helpful for someone else in the future. Thanks for watching.